Don't overlook your quarters. The 1970, 1978, and 1987 Washington quarters could be worth a lot more than 25 cents. Rare mint errors, proof strikes, and high-grade coins from these years have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Check your pocket change carefully. Your ordinary quarter might just be a hidden treasure. The 1970 U.S. Washington quarter-dollar coin might seem like an ordinary piece of pocket change, but hidden among the millions minted that year lies one of the most fascinating and valuable modern coin errors in American history. To most people, it's just a 25-cent coin featuring George Washington's noble profile. But to coin collectors and numismatists, certain 1970 Washington quarters are legendary, not because of their age, but because of the incredible minting mistakes that turned them into treasures worth tens of thousands of dollars. Let's start by stepping back in time to understand the origin of the Washington quarter itself. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932, designed by John Flanagan to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The obverse design, which still endures today, features Washington's left-facing bust with the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and the date below. On the reverse side, we see a bold heraldic eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and readiness for defense, flanked by olive branches representing peace. It's a classic, dignified design that perfectly captures American ideals. BY 1970. The U.S. Mint had already shifted away from using silver in its quarters. Starting in 1965, quarters were struck in a copper-nickel-clad composition, with an inner copper core sandwiched between two outer layers of a copper-nickel alloy. The total weight of a quarter was 5.67 grams, and its edge was reeded with fine grooves, 119 in total. In 1970, these quarters were minted at three main facilities: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, D; and San Francisco, S, the latter producing both proof and circulation strike coins. However, in this particular year, something unusual happened. A small number of 1970 Washington quarters were struck with errors that would eventually make them famous among collectors. These mistakes weren't just small imperfections. Some were so bizarre that they defied normal minting explanations. The most astonishing example is the 1970 S-proof Washington quarter struck on a 1941 Canadian quarter planchet. Yes, you heard that right, a coin struck on another country's coin. Somehow, during the minting process, a 1941 Canadian quarter planchet made of 80% silver and slightly smaller in size ended up in the coining chamber of the U.S. Mint. When the dies for the 1970s Washington quarter came down on that foreign planchet, the result was a hybrid marvel, part American, part Canadian, and entirely accidental. Because the Canadian coin had already been struck decades earlier, faint traces of its original design, including remnants of the Canadian date 1941, are still visible beneath the U.S. design. This overlap of two distinct coinages makes it one of the most dramatic and desirable mint errors ever found. When the existence of this coin was first publicized, it caused a sensation in the numismatic community. Collectors were stunned, and auction houses quickly took notice. In 2016, one of these ultra-rare 1970 S Washington quarters struck on a 1941 Canadian coin sold for an unbelievable $35,000 at auction. Another example later sold for over $40,000, setting a record for a modern mint-era quarter. What makes this coin even more fascinating is that it was struck in proof quality, meaning it came from the San Francisco Mint's special production line intended for collectors, a place where errors are almost never supposed to happen. How did such an error even occur? Mint experts believe that a leftover blank from a foreign coin production run somehow got mixed into the proof coinage feed. Since both blanks were similar in diameter, the machinery didn't detect the difference. The die struck the foreign coin perfectly, creating a quarter with an underlying ghost of another nation's design. Beyond the Canadian planchet error, 1970 also produced several other error varieties that caught collectors' attention. One such example is the double die obverse, where parts of Washington's portrait or the lettering appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. On some 1970 D quarters, you can see noticeable doubling on the words "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." While minor doubling might increase value only slightly, strong doubling can command prices between $1,000 and $5,000, and in pristine uncirculated condition even more. But it's the wrong planchet strikes that continue to fascinate collectors. A few 1970 quarters were struck on dime planchets, smaller, thinner blanks meant for 10-cent coins. These quarters lack part of their design and appear undersized, weighing around 2.27 grams instead of 5.67. These rare wrong planchet errors have been auctioned for over $22,000 depending on their condition and the clarity of their visible features. Another incredible discovery from 1970 is the off-center strike error. When a coin blank is not properly seated between the dies during striking, part of the design lands off to one side, leaving part of the planchet blank. The value of such an error depends on how far off-center the strike is and whether the date remains visible. Mild off-center errors may sell for a few $100s, but dramatic examples, such as those struck 50% or more off-center with a visible date, can fetch $20,000 to $25,000 at auction. Collectors have also identified broad strike errors and partial collar strikes from this year. These occur when the collar die, which gives the coin its reeded edge, malfunctions or is absent. Without the collar, the coin spreads out wider and flatter than normal, sometimes looking almost like a medallion. A particularly dramatic 1970p broadstrike quarter with nearly smooth edges was sold for $21,600 due to its superb condition and the rarity of such an extreme broadstrike on a quarter. And then there's the missing clad layer error, one of the most striking visually. Since modern quarters are made of copper-nickel layers bonded to a copper core, any failure in that bonding process can cause one of the outer layers to peel or fail to attach. The resulting coin shows a copper surface on one side and a normal silver-gray surface on the other. These are relatively rare, but when found on early 1970s quarters in high grade, they can bring impressive prices. A 1970 D quarter missing its reverse-clad layer fetched nearly $19,500, while a similar piece missing its obverse-clad layer sold for $22,700 in a 2021 auction. A smaller, but still fascinating category of errors involves die cracks and die chips, tiny imperfections that occur when a die used for striking coins begins to fracture or deteriorate. On some 1970 quarters, cracks can be seen running through Washington's hair, neck, or even across the eagle on the reverse. While smaller cracks might be worth only modest premiums, dramatic die breaks that visibly disrupt the design have been sold for over $3,000, particularly if they are in uncirculated condition. What makes the 1970 Washington quarter so exciting for collectors is the sheer diversity of its errors, from simple doubling to dramatic wrong planchet and off-center strikes, and of course, the famous Canadian coin overstrike. It's a year that stands out because it shows how even in a modern, highly mechanized minting process, extraordinary mistakes can still occur. The 1970s proof quarter on a 1941 Canadian quarter remains the crown jewel of the series. It's a reminder that accidents at the mint can produce treasures far beyond their intended value. Imagine holding a coin that was meant to be a simple proof quarter but instead became a hybrid of two nations, struck with such precision that both designs remain visible under magnification. That level of intrigue is what makes coin collecting such a thrilling pursuit. A blend of art, history, and luck truly plays a part. Many of these coins were discovered not by professional numismatists but by everyday people, coin roll hunters, collectors, and even casual change checkers who noticed something odd about a quarter's weight, color, or edge. A duller sound when dropped, a slightly different diameter, or an unusual surface texture can sometimes be the first clue that you're holding a rare mint error worth thousands. Today, examples of the 1970-era quarters continue to sell for breathtaking prices. The proof error on a Canadian coin between $35,000 and $40,000. A dramatic off-center strike over $22,000. A broad strike exceeding $21,600, and wrong planchet examples fetching around $25,000. These numbers are extraordinary for a coin that started its life worth just 25 cents. In 1978, the United States Mint continued producing one of the most iconic and widely recognized coins in American history, the Washington quarter. To most people, the 25-cent piece is simply pocket change, used for vending machines, parking meters, or morning coffee. But among collectors, the 1978 Washington quarter has become something far more intriguing. Beneath its ordinary appearance lies the possibility of hidden minting errors, small production mishaps that transformed a simple coin into a rare and valuable collectible, sometimes selling for thousands of dollars at auction. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Designed by sculptor John Flanagan, the coin's obverse features the profile of the first U.S. president facing left, with the word liberty inscribed above, "In God We Trust," to the left, and the year, in this case 1978, below his portrait. The reverse showcases a majestic bald eagle with spread wings clutching a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength, while olive branches below represent peace. Around it are the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter BY 1978. The quarter was made from a copper-nickel-clad composition, a layer of copper sandwiched between two layers of nickel. It had replaced the 90% silver quarters of pre-1965, marking a new era in U.S. coinage. Billions of 1978 quarters were minted between Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, meaning they were everywhere, in banks, stores, and pockets across the country. Yet among those billions, a few special coins slipped past inspection, coins with minting errors that would later make them worth far more than 25 cents. One of the most notable errors found on the 1978 Washington quarter is the double die obverse, a mistake that happens when the die imprints the design twice but slightly misaligned. On certain 1978 quarters, careful examination under magnification reveals doubling in the inscriptions "Liberty" or "In God We Trust." The letters appear shadowed, almost like a faint echo, creating a fascinating visual effect. Collectors value these coins highly because doubling on the obverse side is a clear indication of a die alignment issue at the mint. Depending on the clarity of the doubling and the coin's condition, these coins can sell anywhere from $500 to over $3,000, with top-graded examples sometimes surpassing $10,000 at major coin auctions. Another prized error from the 1978 series is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank or planchet isn't properly centered between the dies during striking. As a result, the design appears shifted, with part of it missing or cut off. Some off-center 1978 quarters are only slightly misaligned, while others are so far off that parts of the date or George Washington's head are missing. The more dramatic the error, and the more visible the date, the higher the coin's value. Slightly off-center examples might sell for $100 to $300, while extreme off-center strikes showing 40 to 60% misalignment with a full date visible have fetched $2,000 to $5,000, and some pristine examples even over $10,000. The broad strike error is another interesting variety collectors look for. In this case, the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking fails, allowing the metal to expand outward. This gives the coin a wider, flatter appearance, often missing the raised rim around the edge. On a 1978 Washington quarter, a broad strike error produces a smooth, spread-out look that's instantly recognizable. These coins often sell for $100 to $500, and exceptionally clean specimens can reach higher values in auctions. Then there's the clipped planchet error, a type of mistake that happens before the coin is even struck. When the metal sheet is fed into the blanking press at the mint, overlapping punches sometimes cut out circular planchets too close together, resulting in one or more clipped edges. On a 1978 quarter, this can appear as a small crescent-shaped missing portion. Genuine clipped planchets often show blended metal flow along the clip's edge, confirming it occurred during minting rather than damage afterward. Depending on size and location, a clipped 1978 quarter can fetch $100 to $400, and rare multiple clip examples can be worth even more. Perhaps the most fascinating and valuable mint error is the wrong planchet strike. Occasionally, a planchet intended for another denomination slips into the quarter press. This leads to coins struck on penny or nickel planchets, creating a completely unexpected result. For example, a 1978 Washington quarter struck on a copper cent planchet would appear reddish in color and weigh less than usual, instantly drawing attention. Another rare case might involve a dime planchet, resulting in a smaller, underweight quarter with missing details. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare, and authenticated examples have sold for $5,000 to over $15,000, depending on the coin's condition and metal type. Some 1978 quarters also show die cracks or cuds, raised lines or blobs of metal where the die itself fractured or broke during striking. On the obverse, cracks might appear across Washington's head, neck, or along the rim. On the reverse, they often stretch across the eagle's wings or tail. While small die cracks are common, larger, more dramatic ones, known as cuds, can greatly increase a coin's value. A well-defined cud error from 1978 could easily sell for $200 to $800, and unusually bold ones might go higher. There are even double-struck or triple-struck errors from this year, where the coin was struck multiple times by the dies in slightly different positions. These coins show overlapping or ghost-like designs, two eagles, two dates, or doubled lettering, that look almost surreal. A double-struck 1978 quarter can range from $500 to $2,000, but those with extreme misalignment or partial rotations can reach $5,000 or more, particularly in mint state condition. Another intriguing variation is the off-metal or transitional planchet error, where a 1978 quarter was accidentally struck on a leftover planchet from a previous year or a different denomination. While rare, these have been confirmed for various coins and can sell for astonishing amounts, sometimes over $20,000 at auctions, especially when certified by PCGS or NGC. Imagine finding one of these coins in your pocket. You're counting change from a coffee shop, and suddenly you notice something strange. Maybe the edge looks too smooth, the image is off-center, or the color seems different. At first, you might dismiss it as damage, but with a closer look, you realize it could be a mint error. Some of the most valuable 1978 quarters ever discovered were found this way, in everyday change, completely by accident. One collector from Ohio once found a 1978 Washington quarter with a clear double die error while sorting through a box of coins from the bank. After having it authenticated and graded, it sold at auction for nearly $8,000. Another collector in California stumbled upon a broad strike error that later sold for over $3,000. These stories remind us that valuable coins don't always come from dealers or estate sales. Sometimes they come straight from your spare change jar. When it comes to coin collecting, condition plays a massive role in determining value. Coins graded as mint state or proof with sharp details and minimal wear can multiply in value. Having your coin authenticated by a professional grading service like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Company, NGC, can confirm its authenticity and dramatically increase its market value. The 1978 Washington quarter might not contain silver, but it holds something even more special: mystery and potential. Each mint error tells its own story, a snapshot of what went wrong in a high-speed production line at the U.S. Mint nearly half a century ago. These mistakes, once seen as defects, are now cherished treasures. For collectors, the thrill lies not just in ownership but in the hunt. The idea that a rare error coin could still be hiding in circulation, waiting to be discovered. Somewhere in a cash register, a vending machine, or a coin jar, a 1978 quarter with a hidden flaw might still exist, worth thousands of dollars to the right collector. So the next time you receive change, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look at those coins. Examine the date, the lettering, the edges, and even the color. You never know. That ordinary quarter in your hand might not be so ordinary after all. It might be a 1978 Washington quarter with a rare minting error, a small piece of American minting history, and a big surprise in value. The story of the 1978 Washington quarter reminds us that even in the smallest, most common objects, there can be hidden treasures, and sometimes what appears to be a tiny flaw is actually the key to something worth over $20,000 or more. So, keep your eyes open, check your change carefully, and remember, history and value can often be found in the most unexpected places. The 1987 United States Washington quarter dollar might look like an ordinary coin at first glance. Just another piece of change in your pocket, worth 25 cents. But for collectors and coin enthusiasts, the 1,987 quarter carries stories of rare errors, minting mishaps, and surprising auction results that transformed a few lucky finds into treasures worth thousands of dollars. While billions of quarters were struck that year, a small number of flawed coins slipped through the mint's quality control process, and those errors have made all the difference in their value and mystique. The 1987 Washington quarter is proof that even in an era of advanced minting technology, perfection is never absolute, and those imperfections can become gold mines for those who know where to look. By 1987, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for over 50 years. First introduced in 1932 to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington, the design by John Flanagan featured Washington's left-facing portrait on the obverse, with the bold word, "Liberty" above, "In God We Trust" beside, and the date below. The reverse design displayed the majestic eagle perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches beneath, symbolizing America's readiness for peace but strength in defense. It was a design that had become an American classic, instantly recognizable, yet sometimes hiding fascinating minting secrets. The 1987 quarters were struck at both the Philadelphia Mint, without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, bearing the D mark. Billions were produced that year for circulation, and as expected, most were perfectly ordinary. However, a handful escaped the mint with visible flaws, off-center strikes, double dies, broad strikes, and even coins struck on the wrong planchets. For collectors, these mistakes are not imperfections but rare treasures that hold stories of the minting process gone slightly off course. Among the most valuable 1987 quarter errors are the off-center strikes. This error occurs when the coin blank, known as a planchet, isn't properly aligned in the striking press. As a result, only part of the design is imprinted, while the rest of the coin shows a blank crescent. The degree of the off-center strike determines its rarity and value. A minor off-center strike may only fetch $40 to $60, but those with more dramatic misalignments, where as much as 50% of the design is missing while the date remains visible, can sell for $400 or more. In one recorded auction, a 1987 D off-center quarter in uncirculated condition sold for over $750 because of its perfectly preserved details and bold misalignment. Then there's the double die error, one of the most intriguing types for collectors. This happens when the coin die receives more than one impression from the hub at slightly different angles. The result is a doubling of certain elements on the coin, often in the inscriptions like Liberty, In God We Trust, or even on Washington's eye and hair. On the reverse, doubling may appear on the word United or E pluribus unum. These double details can range from subtle to dramatic. A 1987 quarter with noticeable doubling can be worth anywhere from $100 to over $1,000, depending on clarity and condition. Some enthusiasts believe that several minor double die varieties remain undiscovered in circulation today, quietly hiding among ordinary change. The broad strike error is another fascinating type found on some 1987 quarters. This occurs when a coin is struck without the restraining collar die that normally shapes its edges. As a result, the metal spreads outward, creating a wider, slightly flattened coin with smooth edges. A broad strike quarter is immediately noticeable to the trained eye, as it lacks the reeded, ridged edge typical of quarters. Well-preserved examples of 1987 broad strikes can command prices between $100 and $300, depending on how clear and centered the design appears. An even rarer and more valuable category is the wrong planchet strike. Every denomination of U.S. coinage uses a specific planchet, but sometimes a blank intended for another denomination mistakenly finds its way into the press. A 1987 Washington quarter struck on a nickel or penny planchet would be smaller, lighter, and often reddish or yellowish in color. These mistakes are exceptionally scarce and always draw attention when authenticated. One such coin, a 1987 quarter struck on a copper penny planchet, shocked collectors when it sold for over $2,800 at auction, proving that minting errors can turn an ordinary coin into a small fortune. Another interesting error from 1987 is the clipped planchet. During planchet preparation, if the metal strip used to cut coin blanks overlaps or misfeeds, it can produce coins missing small curved or straight sections. These clipped coins are visually striking. You can see a noticeable bite-like curve along the rim. A 1987 quarter with a clean curved clip can easily fetch $150 or more, while double or straight clips are even rarer and worth several $100s, depending on how dramatic the clip appears. Of course, not every valuable 1987 quarter is an error coin. Some high-grade examples, especially those in mint state 67 or higher, have brought impressive sums simply for their condition. A 1987 P quarter graded MS67 by PCGS once sold for over $700, and a 1987 D example in the same grade fetched nearly $800. This may seem surprising for a modern coin, but the truth is that pristine examples of high mintage coins are much rarer than one might think. The majority of these coins entered circulation immediately after minting, making top-grade survivors very scarce today. Die cracks and die chips also add another layer of collectability to 1987 quarters. These occur when the die used to strike the coins begins to wear down or crack from overuse. When a portion of the die breaks off, It leaves raised lines or blobs of extra metal on the struck coin. These imperfections often appear around Washington's head, on his neck, or along the eagle's wings on the reverse. Collectors refer to these as cuds or die breaks. A well-placed, prominent cud on a 1987 quarter can raise its value from face value to over $100 or more, depending on visibility and appeal. While these mint errors are rare, they've been known to spark bidding wars at major auctions. In 2021, an error 1987 D quarter featuring an off-center strike combined with a broad strike error sold for nearly $1,200 after grading. Another example, a double die obverse with sharp doubling on Liberty, realized over $2,500, highlighting the increasing collector demand for coins that tell unique minting stories. Some collectors have even found 1987 quarters with partial collar errors, where the collar die engaged only partially during striking, leaving one section of the edge smooth while the rest retains reading. These subtle yet interesting errors can bring in $100 to $200, especially in uncirculated grades. Perhaps what's most exciting about 1987 quarters is how often people find them in ordinary circulation. Unlike older coins that are rarely encountered, 1987 quarters still appear in pocket change and coin rolls. That accessibility makes the hunt even more thrilling. Imagine finding a $1,000 error coin mixed in with your spare change. It's every collector's dream and the reason coin roll hunting remains such a popular hobby today. For those who collect modern errors, the 1987 Washington quarter holds a special place. It represents a transitional period in U.S. minting, when mechanical precision had improved significantly, yet occasional human and machine oversights still produced fascinating mistakes. Each error is like a fingerprint, a moment frozen in time when the mint's perfection momentarily faltered, creating something unique. And let's not forget that condition still matters. Even without dramatic errors, 1987 quarters in pristine condition, showing sharp detail and luster, are sought after by those building registry sets. A beautifully struck, perfectly preserved quarter can rival the excitement of finding an error, especially when it becomes one of the highest graded examples known. Collectors often share stories of stumbling upon these hidden gems by accident, finding a coin with odd edges, strange doubling, or lighter color, only to realize later that it's worth hundreds or even thousands. That's the magic of coin collecting. You never know what treasures lie waiting in your pocket or an old jar of change. Over time, as more people search for these 1987 error quarters, their rarity and value continue to rise. While most will still only be worth their face value, the exceptional ones, those with bold off-center strikes, missing details, or wrong planchets, are now selling at auctions for well over $20,000 in the most extraordinary cases. The 1987 Washington quarter reminds us that small imperfections can turn something ordinary into something extraordinary. It's a testament to the beauty of human error, the thrill of discovery, and the lasting allure of American coinage. So, next time you're handed a quarter in change, take a moment to look closer. Because that plain-looking coin might just be hiding a secret from 1987. A small metallic piece of history that's worth far more than 25 cents.